Welcome to Rick Rack Ruby. I'm Laura Cluvo. Today we will be making this angel ornament featuring the Pixie Noel 2 fabric collection. She's fun and easy, so let's get started. Today I am continuing to work with my stack of fussy cut images from the Pixie Noel 2 collection. Today I'm going to work with this one. I have intended to cut out these images with a 1/2 inch border, but I had to come a little close on the top here because there was another image right here, and if I came a full 1/2 inch above it, I would have lost this one. But it's still plenty big enough for me to work with, and I can tell you that this one is 4 by 2 1/4. We're going to make an angel today, and it's a smaller angel than the first design, but it's by no means small. So I have this, a 4 by 2 1/4. I have 2 4-inch squares of a stripe, and then I have 2 5 by 6 inch red rectangles. There's 2 of these. I actually cut these from a layer cake square, so that's why there's the pinking around the edge. So the first thing I want to do is to line up these 2 striped. And remember, this stripe is printed on the diagonal, so you don't have to cut it on the bias or anything. So I'm going to try to match up these stripes so that I can get a nice sort of a V shape. Looks like I'm going to have to go a little bit off like that. Okay, so I'm going to fold this over and pin it very carefully so that those stripes match up, and then I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam, and I'll be back. Here we go. I've sewn this together. The first time I sewed it, I was not happy with the way that the stripes matched, so it was like this, and so I cut this off and tried again on this side. And you can see that these are a little bit staggered. There's a little bit more of an edge here and here. So I'm going to trim this up and make it straight across at the bottom. So you can see I have plenty of extra here with those 4-inch squares. Here we go. And there's my center. And I will stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance right here. Press the seam allowances up in the back. And now I'm going to sort of square this off. And you can see that the 6-inch tall red fabrics are plenty of height. I have a new iron if you hear it hissing in the background. I just filled it up for steam, which I don't usually do, and that's what you hear. Okay, I'm going to cut these off, and I'm going to also trim the very top edge. If you saw the large angel that, well, I made it last week. I don't know when you're watching this, but if you saw the large angel, you will recognize this technique. It's the same, but this is smaller, and it's going to be simpler. I'm not going to add any lace right here because I feel like it's going to hide the cute little bird. But we will have lace along the bottom. But first, I'm going to add these side panels, this side, and then this one on this side. Here we go. Now I'm going to press the seams toward the red and then, trim this edge, which is actually the top edge, so that it's even with the top of the center panel. Here we go. I wound up cutting about a 1/2 inch off the top of each one of these squares. And now with my pinking shears, I will just cut this little center panel, and then we're going to add some lace. I've chosen I think that's probably about 3/4 inch, and I'm just going to top stitch. I'm not going to hem or, treat this any way other than just, stitch it to the top of the fabric. I might use a very narrow zigzag because sometimes I find if I'm just using a straight stitch that the needle doesn't always go right in the middle of that header. I think I want to press this lace also. There's the bottom, and I'm going to align this so that these scallops, like the little space inside the scallop, is on the fabric, and then the little border is off the edge. There's the back, and you can see my little zigzag where I attach the lace. It's not perfect, but I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to match up the edges, especially I want to get that lace matched up, and then stitch the back seam. There's my dress. I'm turning it right side out. It looks good, and I will set it aside. This angel has a 25mm head bead. I've already made the face, and of course you can find the instructions for the Rick Rack Ruby face in my Focus on Faces video. I have about 15 inches of 1/16 inch ribbon, and I have 6-inch wide tulle. So I'm going to cut off 2 lengths of this tulle, about 15 inches each. Maybe, no, that's more like 20 inches. Just as long as it's longer than the dress. Fold that in half. So have both layers folded in half, and then I'm going to tie them off in the center like this with my 1/16 inch ribbon. And then I'm going to send the ends of the ribbon, through the bead from the bottom to the top. I'll pull the tulle through that hole just to kind of, this just kind of compresses the tulle at the top here, so that when I put glue on it, it goes right up inside the bead. So I'll add some glue right here to the back, not a lot, and then just, you know, pull that through. I switched from red to the ivory tool because when I made my first one, I'm not doing the crazy hairstyle with this one. And so the very top of the bead, I could kind of see that red tulle in there, and it wasn't quite covered by the hair, and so I had to kind of add a little extra hair, and it was kind of a pain. So I decided to go back to the ivory. There we go. I just tied a knot in the end, and she's ready to go. So now with a needle and thread, I'm going to gather up the top edge. I always use a thimble, and I start in the seam allowance in the center back. So I'll secure my thread here in the seam allowance like this, and then just gather up all the way around. If you've been watching Rick Rack Ruby for any length of time, this will look very familiar to you, but I always want to respect my new subscribers who maybe haven't seen this before. When I get to the seam, I always go over the seam so that when I pull it tight, it goes down like a valley. Here's another seam coming up, so I'll do the same thing, go over that seam. And I'm sewing pretty close to the top. Try to get it about less than 1/4 inch. And now I'm back to the beginning. I always use a thimble. My grandmother taught me that. When I was a girl, it was so awkward at first, but now I can't imagine using my bare flesh to push the back end of a needle. Now I'm going to trim all this fraying. There we go. Now there's the dress. I'm going to open that up a little bit and set the face right there in the center. Pull this tight. Try to be sure that that center panel is right underneath her chin. Oops, my thread broke. Actually, only one part of it broke. I still have one strand of this quilting thread, so I'll just continue. This will be fine. The thread is strong. I think maybe my knot was weak. This is hand quilting thread, and I started with a double strand. But of course now it's only a single strand. Now I'm going to wrap, 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 and then stitch through. Instead of a double strand, I only have one, so I'm trying to be a little bit more careful. I'll stitch through again. And then I'm going to secure it in the back, kind of making sure that center back seam, do you see that? Is right in the middle. And then I'll secure this in the back. Now I'm going to trim all of this excess. I knew I cut that too long. This excess tulle a little bit below the edge of the dress to become her petticoat. And now for her collar, I have a ½ yard of flat white lace. This is about 5/8 or 3/4 of an inch wide, but I don't think it matters. You can choose whatever lace you like. So I made a larger knot. Hope this one holds. Now I'm going to fold back the end of the lace. Sometimes I have to see which is the right side. And secure my needle with a loop. So I kind of looped through like that. And, you know, caught the loop. And now I'll gather this up. Just in and out from one end to the other. There's my collar. So I will place this around her neck, join the ends together in the back, and secure my thread. I'm stitching through the collar and the dress, back to front, and then front to back, and then I will secure the thread in the back. I made sure that the collar is, the fullness and the ruffle is distributed fairly evenly from side to side. And now I'll secure this in the back. Even though the baker's twine doesn't show up very well against the striped fabric, I still like it a little bit better than red ribbon. I wish I had red string, but I don't. So I'm just going to sew through a little bit in the front of the collar, or you can just tie the bow and glue it if you like. I just feel like this is a little bit more secure. And be sure your needle, you know, don't frustrate yourself. Get a big needle. It has to be a big needle with a big eye to accommodate the cord, but also with a sharp point. Sometimes those big needles are tapestry needles and they're blunt and you can't get it through the fabric. So I'm just tying a bow. I don't want it to be too long, but my baker's twine is only this long, so that'll have to do. And I'm going to tie an overhand knot in each end. Just like that. I don't want the ends of the cord, the ends of the twine to be hiding my little figure there, so I'll trim those a little bit. They don't have to be even. They don't have to be perfect. The loops don't have to be identical. Just tie a bow. And I'm going to add a little holly sticker right here. These are from Jolee's Boutique. They are at Hobby Lobby or at Joann's. I think they're everywhere. So I added a little bit of hot glue to the back of the sticker because I never trust their adhesive. You know, I think these are designed more for paper crafting and not really for sticking to fabric. So I'll hold that for a second, and that will help to hold the bow, as well as give a little bit of sparkle to the angel. She's looking so cute. Okay, let's do her hair. I'm using, you know what? I have this little bit left here. I buy these skeins and then I roll balls from the skeins, and so this must have been the end of a ball, but I think it might be enough for at least part of the hair. So I'm going to hold the end here in my left hand, I'm right-handed, and then wrap this one and, wait a minute, let me start over. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and I'm aiming for 6. 6. Okay, it's gonna work. So then I'm gonna go around the center, pick up the first end and tie this off in a square knot in the center, like this. So I have a figure 8 bundle. There we go, with 6 loops on each side. Now I'll make a second bundle with my new ball of yarn. This is Loopy Mohair. I got it on Etsy. I will leave the link in the supply list. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 5 and 6. I'm spreading my fingers kind of far apart. Let's see how big this is. 2.5. The bundle should be about 2.5 inches across. So, did you hear that? That is a woodpecker. There we go, 2 bundles. So the first bundle will go on the back of the head. I'm going to spread a circle of glue on the back of her head, like that. And then the knot goes on the top, right behind the hanging loop. And then I'm just going to sort of pull those loops down and press them into the glue. The back doesn't have to be pretty because it will be covered with the wings. Then I'm going to add a little glue on either side to secure the sides. Just sort of, we still have the other bundle to do the front, so this is just sort of like the back half, like that. Now I'll add a little more glue to the top, and then I'm going to press that bundle into the top, but just a little bit of glue, right to the top of where the ribbon comes out, like that. And then press that in. And then another line of glue right here. And then I'm going to twist and press that into the line of glue. There it is. Twist and press. That looks good. Got a little extra glue there that I caught it in time. And then the same thing over here. I will add a line of glue and then twist and press this side in. I'm twisting toward the back. That looks good. This one's a little loose, so I'm going to add some glue and secure that. There we go. Awesome. Let's add her halo. This is 20 gauge gold wire and some wire cutters. I cut off maybe 2 inches. It doesn't take much. And then, actually this looks like 2.5 inches. I'm going to use my thimble to sort of shape that into a circle or a U, like that. Add a drop of glue to each end. And then I'm going to press the ends into the hairstyle. There we go. Great. Now let's make the wings. For the wings, I'm going to use this white with blue polka dots fabric. And this is the same one that I use for the large angel. And I have a 4 3/4 inch circle that is cut from woven fusible interfacing. So I'm going to iron that onto the back of the fabric and cut it out. When I ironed it on and lined it up with the fabric, I tried to match the grain in the fabric with the grain in the woven interfacing, but honestly, I don't know how important that is. Now I'm folding it in half. Again, I'm paying attention to the grain. And I'm going to stitch around this curved edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to trim the seam allowance with my pinking shears. There we go. Now to turn it right side out, you notice I didn't leave an opening. It's always hard for me to turn something and then secure the opening when there's a curved edge. I'm going to come down about, well, here, let's determine the center. Okay, I was right. Okay, then starting a 1/2 inch down, I'm going to make a little cross here, little plus sign. This is a disappearing marker, so don't worry about that purple line. And then I will sort of pinch it to be sure I'm not catching this back edge, and I will cut that cross. Don't be skimpy on the opening because you don't want to have a hard time turning it. Then I'm going to turn this through the opening. I like to use a chopstick. Let's see. To be sure I get all the way out. I'm running the chopstick along the seamed edge to be sure that every little bit of that is turned. But I also have another trick. I have a little cup of water here. I'm going to dip my fingers into that and sort of, you know, pinch and roll this to the edge to be sure that I get, you know, as far as I can. I can kind of see the stitches along the edge. That looks good. And now I'm going to press that. Well, now I have some water droplets on my surface, so I hope you can ignore that. Here is how my wings look. I'm not going to close up this little opening because this will be glued to the back of her head and will be disguised. It's not a problem. But first, I want to add some decorative stitches around the outside. So I'm going to do a scallop design with red thread. It's just important to remember that this side with the opening is the front. So when I'm stitching from this side. Here's how it looks. You know, full disclosure, I already had this ready. And so if I would have done it in real time, maybe these droplets would have been gone. But I'm going to just add some hot glue to the center right here and press this onto the back of her head. It's really important to glue it to the back of her head and not down here where her shoulders would be. I don't know why, that just doesn't look right. Here's the glue. So I'm not gluing over the cross. I'm gluing it high and center. There we go. And this is also why it's not important to have the back of the hair, you know, doesn't have to be super pretty. Just the sides. Now what I want to do is compare this to the larger ink. Here we go. So here's the one we made today, and this is the one from the last video. So this one is significantly longer. She has more hair. The wings are exactly the same, and the technique is the same. This one has this extra row of lace, but I didn't have room for it on this, and plus I wanted to make this smaller and simpler. So you can see she's like the big sister, and she's the little sister. Thank you for watching my video. If you're enjoying my tutorials, please like, share, and subscribe.